This story begins with a very attractive girl who is on top of the protagonist in an embarrassing situation. She tells him that it seems he has woken up, and he immediately panics at being so close to a beautiful waifu, wondering where he is and what kind of situation this is. He quickly jumps out of bed, confused about what is happening, and questions whether he has been reborn, as 300 years ago he accidentally entered a fairy world in the Qincheng Mountains, after which he began his cultivation journey. Over those 300 years, he worked hard to find knowledge, practicing day and night, and became a sword cultivator. When he reached his destination, unexpectedly he did not attain the realm of eternity but opened a corridor of space and time, returning to Earth at the age of 17. Seeing the girl, the protagonist asks who she is and what she wants from him. Noticing his tension, she tells him not to be shy. However, he mentions that there seems to be a small misunderstanding and that it would be better for her to leave. The girl stands up, asking how he can leave without first asking for her name, introducing herself as Yi Chensi, and asks if he is going to let the dove go, adding that it is a blessing for him to have her by his side. This doesn't matter to Chu Qing, who decides to leave. Just as he is about to go, Chensi stops him, but the protagonist removes her hand from his arm, and now it is he who grabs her tightly, unleashing a great power. At that moment, the girl realizes that the protagonist has something very special, but she pushes him away with a surprising force. He takes this opportunity to escape, grabbing his school uniform, and runs away quickly. Isn't this interesting? He can escape my impulse. Do you think you can escape from me? Chu Qing, you are my great white rabbit. I won't let you go. Meanwhile, the protagonist finds himself in the city, astonished to see so many people again. It has been 300 years. I have finally returned to Earth. Father, mother, sister, I can finally see you again. He notices that the world has changed. Now women do the jobs that men used to do. What the hell just happened? The people here are very different from when I left. So, Chu Qing decides to go to the library to find out what is happening. He reads a book that states that in ancient times, in spring and autumn, a disaster occurred that changed the physical condition of women, making them intelligent and strong. This was due to a woman named Kong Mo, who created Confucianism, which is the doctrine of respecting women more than men. This change in imperial power caused the emperor to lose his throne and pass the crown to the princess, not the prince. By the 21st century, the impact of modern change stemmed from the idea of changing the respect of women over men, although the idea of women being above men still exists. When a man is married, if there is a divorce, men often end up divorced. In this world, it is even normal for a woman to pursue a man. All this information leaves the protagonist very surprised, as he thinks it is really ridiculous for women to be superior to men, even that women want to be the ones proposing to men. So, he wonders how the situation at home will be. The protagonist goes to his house, and the first thing he encounters is his father doing household chores. Upon seeing him, his father rushes over and hugs him tightly. "Father, didn't you say you were going to school and would come home later?" The father accidentally catches a whiff of perfume and exclaims, "You went out with women? How many times have I told you it's dangerous for a handsome boy like you to go out? Even if it's your classmate, you have to be alert. Look at this news. A 15-year-old boy trusted his classmate, was raped, and a video was leaked. How is this boy going to have a future?" Upon hearing such grave news, the protagonist is very frightened. Do you now know how terrifying this is? Your sister has been playing all day. She went to a third-rate university and couldn't get a job after graduating. Now she's at home, and there's no hope for her, but we expect you to get into a good university. You're young. Don't let yourself be deceived by bad women in the future. Dad, I understand. Don't worry about me. Where's Mom? Your mother is still discussing business with others outside. The business isn't going well, which makes things difficult. It's time to eat. I'll call your sister. The protagonist goes to his sister's room and opens the door slowly, only to find Chuxiao, his sister, watching something inappropriate. He can't believe what he sees and screams loudly, startling her. What is this? She comes out of her room. Hurry up and come eat. He asks, were you watching a bad video? What's the point of that? Live streaming is what's best now. This topic isn't suitable for kids like you. She then walks away. Later that night, Chu Qing is with their father. CHUXIAO arrives and says she's going out to eat with friends and will be back late. However, since she doesn't have any money, she demands 1,000 yuan from her father, who is taken aback by her request. She insists she's going out with friends for business. Their father, annoyed, tells her to be more like her younger brother and to consider their parents' worries. Why should I learn from him? He's just a man. I can still marry a rich woman in the future, so I need to fight for myself. Mom and Dad should support me in the future. Her father reluctantly gives her the 1,000 yuan, warning her not to waste it and to save some money. Do you think it's easy for your mother to earn money? Don't squander it all. Seeing this, the protagonist asks, is it okay to let her go? What else can I do? Your sister is a girl. Should I keep her tied up at home like you? A woman needs to go out and seek work and money. As for your sister's attitude, forget it. As long as she doesn't mess things up, it's fine. Suddenly, their mother comes home, exhausted from a long day at work. Chu Qing immediately runs and hugs her tightly. Their mother asks why he's acting this way. Isn't your allowance enough? She proceeds to give some money to the protagonist. Mom used to be stingy. She often tricked me into asking her for 10 yuan to go to the internet cafe to play games. But now she's willing to give me money easily. Mom, I don't need it, he replies. You silly boy, just keep the money. Our family is having a tough time, but that won't make you feel disadvantaged. Your best academic performance is the greatest comfort for your mother. Not seeing her daughter anywhere, their mother asks where CHUXIAO is. The father tells her that she's out again. The mother mentions that she's still playing and will soon realize the importance of her future responsibilities as the head of the family. At that moment, the protagonist sees that the true head of the house is his mother. Observing this, he thinks that even if the world is upside down, he can't accept seeing his parents behave this way. To avoid witnessing any more of this spectacle, he decides to go to his room, which has a feminine touch. In this world, where women's rights are respected, every family thinks about having a daughter. This has grown over the last few centuries, creating a significant difference between the male and female populations of the world. That is to say, there are still tens of millions of single women in this country. Women who want to get married must have a house and a car to marry a good man, and as long as men are good-looking, they will be pursued by women. With my face, I'm a catch for a lot of women. The protagonist opens his drawer and is shocked to find many love letters addressed to him. It seems I'm the most sought after in high school. Damn, I need to do my thing and leave this world as soon as possible. The aura here is abundant and strong. If that's the case, I can regain all my training and the skills I lost in the time-space continuum. Let the time-space corridor open so I can return to the other world. I have to get out of this upside-down world. I can't wait any longer. So he starts to practice. After practicing the golden freedom, my 5 senses will sharpen. I'll try it. Dad and Mom are already asleep, but where is my sister? Right, I forgot that in this world, the roles of women and men are reversed, so it's not surprising that a woman is out so late. At that moment, the protagonist's phone rings. It's his sister calling. What's up, sister? Listen to me. I'm in trouble. Don't tell our parents or call the police. What happened? There's a black bag under my bed in my room. Send me that bag now. I'm at Crescent Bar on Jai Street. But the gang leader snatches the phone and tells the protagonist that if he wants his sister to be okay, he should obey and bring the bag to room 302. Very angry, the protagonist decides to go find his sister, saying that no one touches his family. He arrives at the agreed place with great speed. Upon entering, he sees some girls holding his sister against her will. Without wasting any more time, he tells the woman that he brought what she asked for and demands she let his sister go. The woman comments that he's quite handsome and that his face is more beautiful than in the photo. Suddenly, she approaches him and asks how old he is. He unpleasantly responds that it's none of her business, which angers the leader. She then opens the bag to check that there is a lot of money inside. Seeing the large sum, the protagonist's sister pretends to be surprised, saying she didn't know that money was in the bag. Seeing his sister's reaction, the protagonist gives her a distrustful look. He doesn't know whether to believe her or not, but immediately CHUXIAO turns to ZHOU, saying she didn't know that was his money, as one of her classmates told her it was personal belongings and asked her to keep it for a while. But Zichou tells her to shut up, not believing anything she says. However, since he already has the money, he orders her to leave before he changes his mind. Upon hearing this, Chuxiao immediately grabs her brother and thanks him. Just as they are about to leave, the woman tells them to wait, as she never said his brother could leave. Chuxiao knows it's not that easy to get out of this place and is aware that these girls plan to do dirty things to her brother. So she defends him, saying she won't allow them to touch him and asks Zichou not to involve her brother in their matters. But the woman, laughing, says that if he leaves, she will stay in his place. Since Chuxiao doesn't want to put anyone in her family at risk, she decides to stay and face the consequences. She tells Chu Qing to go home first, saying she will catch up later, and orders her to listen, as it's not safe for a man to be in this place. The protagonist grabs her arm and asks if she thinks he'll leave her alone. He immediately turns to the leader of the group, calling her old and bluntly asking if she really wants him. Upon hearing this, the woman was filled with rage, warning him that when they were alone, she would torture him in every possible way. But the protagonist was already tired of all this, so he quickly slapped her, shutting her up. Zichou countered with a powerful blow, and immediately both stepped back, realizing they were almost evenly matched. The protagonist remarked that this was really interesting, as women in this world had immense power. Suddenly, he was attacked by the other girls, who charged at him on their leader's orders. However, the protagonist easily dodged them and took them all out with a single strike. Seeing that it was over, he told his sister it was time to leave. Just as they were about to exit, Zichou yelled for them to stop, warning that if they took another step, she wouldn't hesitate to shoot. Chuxiao quickly stepped in front of her brother and asked Zichou to please forgive him, but the woman made it clear that she didn't care how much he pleaded, she would end them both right now. Chu Qing showed no fear and firmly told her that if that's what she wanted, then she should pull the trigger. At that moment, a very attractive girl arrived. Upon witnessing the scene, she asked why she hadn't been invited earlier. As soon as she saw the protagonist, she recognized him immediately. Chu Qing also remembered who this woman was and asked why she was there. She replied that she was there because this place belonged to her and told Zichou to take the person and not interfere where she wasn't called. The furious woman called her crazy and asked if she wanted to break the rules. But Chenxi, hearing the disrespect, ordered her people to cut off her hands and feet and leave her in the street. Zichou realized the huge mistake she had made and immediately begged for mercy, but it was too late. Chenxi had given an order, and it had to be carried out. Once they took her away, she smiled at the protagonist and said it was a gift for him, asking if he liked it. The protagonist responded by asking if she was trying to be nice to him. She moved closer, telling him he was the first man to dare to speak to her that way and said he was really different from everyone she had met. She announced that from now on, he would be her 36th boyfriend. The protagonist rejected this offer, making it clear that he wasn't interested in her and that he could have handled the situation even without her help. He thought to himself who would want to be the 36th boyfriend. Chenxi then said he was just a man and doubted he could have won against Zichou. The protagonist confidently asked if she dared to compare their strength. Chuxiao intervened, telling her brother he was completely crazy, as that woman was much stronger than him. Since Chenxi took the challenge, she asked for the best way to compare who was stronger. The protagonist replied that an arm wrestling match would be ideal, adding that if he lost, she should never bother him again in the future. Chenxi, not knowing what Chu Qing was capable of, accepted without hesitation but on the condition that if she won, he had to be her boyfriend. The protagonist also accepted the deal, and they prepared to compete. A few girls nearby were murmuring, talking about how handsome the guy on stage was, but also mentioning that he had no chance against Chenxi. As the protagonist overheard this thanks to his keen hearing, he knew that women in this world were very strong and looked down on men, so he had to prove himself. Thus, the competition began, and while they competed, Chenxi told him there was a huge gap between women and men, saying she would now teach him to respect her. She started using her power while remaining calm. Meanwhile, the protagonist was struggling to win and admits that his opponent is quite amazing, but since he is not an ordinary human, he suddenly wins the battle with great power. This left Chenxi very surprised, as she could not believe what was happening. The protagonist clarifies that he has just won and reminds her not to forget the bet they made, so he takes his sister by the arm and walks away with her. But Chenxi was burning with rage, and one of her bodyguards suggests that if she wants, they should tie up the boy right now. However, she slaps her, telling her to be quiet since she hasn't lost yet. She then tells Chu Qing that she is surprised by him but reminds him that a small man like him is destined to cling to strong women, adding that she considers him her new boyfriend and mentions that no one in Jinmen can touch him in the future. The protagonist, angry to hear this, asks who says that men should cling to women, to which Chenzi clarifies that since ancient times, men have been pursued by women, and that women are the pillars of the world, driving change and societal development. However, the protagonist disagrees, and determinedly stands in front of her, saying that all he knows is that a man constantly fights to improve, and being a man means standing alongside a beautiful woman and upholding human rights. With that said, he proceeds to leave with his sister. These words left Chenzi very impressed, making her more interested in the protagonist, and she mentions that she won't let him escape no matter what. Meanwhile, Chu Qing was walking home with her sister and asked her not to tell their parents what happened. The protagonist responds that this will be impossible since he will reveal everything that transpired, telling her that if she hadn't been there, she wouldn't have come out of the bar unscathed. Upon hearing this reprimand, Chu Xiao asks if he plans to threaten her with this incident. But putting that aside, she asks Chu Qing when she became so strong. Remembering the girl named Chenzi, she tells him that she is the heir of a family that inherited the underworld troops in the city of Jinmen, and mentions that if he happens to marry her in the future, his sister will be well taken care of. However, the protagonist does not want to hear another word, so he shouts for her to be quiet and warns her that if she says anything else, he will throw her back into the bar. Back at the protagonist's house, he starts practicing because he wants to immediately reach the cultivation level he had in his previous life, as his current level is not enough. But for now, he is able to see and hear clearly, as his 5 senses are gradually improving. This allows him to observe his sister, who is still watching inappropriate things, and he mentions that this Chu Xiao is worse than his sister from the original world. The next day, the protagonist finds himself at the entrance of Jinmen High School when suddenly someone calls out to him from afar. It is his best friend named Lin Dong. He approaches and very effeminately asks what he did yesterday and why he didn't answer any of his calls. Upon seeing this behavior from his best friend, Chu Qing immediately flees the scene, stating that this sissy is not his best friend. In the classroom, the atmosphere is also different. The boys act like girls, and the girls have taken on the role of men. Seeing this whole situation, the protagonist mentions that he can no longer endure being in this world. Just then, someone touches his shoulder. It is a girl named Song, who asks if he is feeling well. He replies that he is, explaining that he didn't have a good breakfast. She offers him some bread to satisfy his hunger and mentions that the university entrance exam will be coming soon, so he needs to take care of his health. Just then, another girl raised her voice and told Song how dare she speak to the school's flower. She pushed her back and immediately approached the protagonist, hugging him and asking if he had read the love letter she gave him yesterday. However, as soon as Chu Qing felt her presence, she pushed her away, tired of the whole situation. The girl, very angry, stood up and decided to attack him, but at that moment, someone shouted for her to stop. It was a boy named Yemao, Chenzi's brother. When she saw him, she got scared and asked what he was doing there. He warned her that it would be better for her to leave right now before he got angry. The girl then ran off in a huff, saying that if it weren't for Chenzi, she wouldn't care and would teach him a lesson. Yemao approached the protagonist and said he wanted to talk to him. Hearing this, the protagonist decided to follow him. Once they were alone, Yemao apologized on behalf of his sister for having captured him the day before. He explained that when he asked someone to help find him, he lost track of his whereabouts. To understand what happened the day before, the story reveals that after being at Yemao's house, it was Chenzi who took him back home, and on the way, she offered him a drink, which was a trap. She intended to drug him and then kidnap him. Yemao, embarrassed by what had happened, apologized again to the protagonist, saying he never thought this would occur. Chu Qing reassured him that it wasn't his fault and, once that matter was cleared up, they decided to head back. After classes, the protagonist decided to return home, but while walking, Chenzi appeared, telling him to get into the car. Chu Qing was not on board with this and wondered why this woman kept bothering him. She threatened him, telling him to think carefully about his family before responding. The protagonist looked at her suspiciously and decided to get in. Once inside, Hai mentioned that he had made a serious mistake by messing with her family, and immediately detonated a diamond-shaped ornament in the car, using it as a distraction to leap at Chenzi. He told her she needed to understand the consequences if she dared to threaten him. But she, a bit scared, insisted that she wasn't making any threats and could help his sister and mother, as she had heard that their business had been having problems lately. The protagonist asked if she was doing all this out of pity, to which she clarified that it wasn't. She proposed that if he agreed to be friends, she would take care of his parents' business issues. He accepted her proposal, and during the ride, she asked Chu Qing if he practiced ancient martial arts. He replied that of course not, but she said she knew he was lying about his strength, as he was not like most men. Despite having investigated him and his family, she found no connections to ancient martial arts and said she wouldn't ask more questions, since it might be his personal secret. Chu Qing was left pondering her words when suddenly, a bus came speeding toward them, crashing into the car and causing a terrible accident. The protagonist suffered the worst injuries, as he shielded Chensi at the moment of impact. When she touched him, her hands became stained with blood as she realized that Chu Qing was seriously injured. Ignoring this, she took him by the waist and carried him out of the car. Seeing him covered in blood, Chensi told the protagonist that his injuries were very severe and that they needed to get to a hospital quickly. He responded that it wasn't over yet, and in the distance, as the smoke cleared, shadows of people could be seen. They were the ones from the truck, seeking revenge for the damage caused. As soon as she noticed this, she warned them that if they dared to hurt her man, she would eliminate them all. But Chensi's warning had no effect on them, so they launched an attack without hesitation, wielding sticks, knives, and bottles. However, she knocked them back in just a second. One of them tried to attack Chu Qing, but he delivered a punch to her abdomen, knocking her out. These women weren't giving up easily, so they continued to attack Chensi. She dodged all the blows, and, tired of the situation, defeated them once and for all. Once the chaos was over, she praised Chu Qing for his help, telling him he did great, to which the protagonist replied that he would leave the rest in her hands. Since Chensi was exhausted, she decided to have her people handle the situation. She realized that if the protagonist hadn't been by her side, she could have been in serious trouble. Noticing Chu Qing's power, she asked him if he was really a high school student. The protagonist didn't answer and changed the subject, telling her that they wouldn't be able to go out to eat together today due to what just happened, suggesting they save it for another time since it was getting late and her father must be worried about her. At that moment, Chensi received a call. The protagonist noticed she sounded very worried and wondered what had happened, but since those matters didn't concern him, he decided to leave. Just as he was about to walk away, Chensi grabbed his arm and, with tears in her eyes, told him that her mother was gravely injured because she had been attacked while alone at home. Hearing this, Chu Qing mentioned that both her mother and she had been attacked at the same time, which was quite a coincidence. Chensi, very sad, said that if her mother died, her aunt would take control, and she would likely be excluded from the Ye family. The protagonist encouraged her, telling her not to cry anymore, as her family depended on her at that moment. She needed to be strong and stand firm, and he offered to accompany her to her home to see what was happening. At these words, Chensi wondered why she felt she could trust the feelings of a man now. Suddenly, she hugged him, feeling the urge to do so and wanting to feel his warmth. That night, they went to the Ye family home, as Chensi wanted to know how her mother was. One of the household workers came out to greet her and informed her that the current situation was difficult and that she couldn't go in, as Mrs. Yemei had said that no one was allowed in except for her daughter. When Chensi heard this, she became very angry. Since the protagonist didn't know what they were talking about, he asked who this Yemei was. She explained that she was her aunt, and her mother had previously told her that Yemei had been with the family for years, always involved in schemes and conspiracies with other families to gain power. She hadn't expected her aunt to attack first, and since they had no time to waste, Chensi asked Chu Qing to accompany her. However, the security guards wouldn't let the protagonist in. To gain entry, he told them he was the doctor coming to check on Mrs. Ye, and fortunately, he had studied medicine in the fairy world, which could be very helpful at that moment. The guards hesitated regarding his credibility, but after a moment, they allowed him to enter along with Chensi. However, before they could go in, they encountered her aunt and cousin. Chensi immediately asked where her mother was because she wanted to see her. Yemei arrogantly asked if she didn't know how to respect hierarchy and told her she had to refer to her as her aunt. She also questioned how she could bring a stranger home, as any man was forbidden from entering the Ye family.